I said yes to posing for my son's art project, but I had no clue what I was in for. This is a real story about bonding in ways I never imagined. My pulse quickened at the thought of being his muse as I stared at the robe. The idea thrilled me, but it also made me a bit uneasy. "Should I put this on?" I asked, and he nodded with a sincere look in his eyes. My fingers shook just a tad as I slipped into the robe and lugged the box up the stairs. The satin felt smooth and chilly against my skin, wrapping me in its soft embrace. This all happened in the dead of February, when winter's grip was tight. Outside, everything was hushed under a thick, frosty quiet, but my thoughts were buzzing like crazy. My son, Ethan, just 24 and brimming with talent, was lost in his world of paintings and drawings, capturing human figures with such vivid motion and feeling. His studio, a cozy nook he'd claimed in our home, was his sanctuary. You could see his heart and soul in the chaotic haven of canvases, jars stuffed with brushes, and splashes of paint everywhere. That morning, bundled in a thick robe to fend off the kitchen's winter chill, I cradled a hot mug of coffee. Your support keeps us going. Right now, 85% of our viewers haven't hit that subscribe button, and we could really use your help to keep sharing stories like this. So, please, click subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's next. Now, let me dive back into the story. Brace yourself for a jaw-dropping twist. The night before, Ethan had pulled an all-nighter, and I couldn't bring myself to rouse him. I was lost in thought, peering out at the frost-laced window, when the stairs groaned under his steps, a familiar sound. "Morning, Mom," Ethan said warmly, his voice steady and deep, holding a steaming cup of tea in one hand and a canvas in the other. His eyes sparkled with creativity, though his hair was a mess, and he still looked half asleep. As he propped the canvas against the counter, I smiled and said, "Hey, sweetie." His energy, so vibrant even in winter's gloom, warmed my heart. "Last night," I started to say. "Did you catch any sleep?" I asked. He gave a shy grin and shrugged. "I was caught up in a project." "Wanna take a peek?" Curious, I nodded. He turned the canvas my way, and I let out a soft gasp at the raw, vivid painting before me. It showed a figure glowing in gentle light, their stance a mix of strength and fragility. The depth and closeness of the piece felt far beyond Ethan's 24 years. "Ethan, this is amazing," I said softly, meaning every word. "You've got something special." He looked away, cheeks pink, clearly shy about the praise. "Thanks, Mom. I owe a lot to you," he said quietly. We shared a quiet moment, a deep connection we didn't need words for. My husband, a decent guy, was often gone for work or his hobbies. His absence left a silent gap in my life, but I'd made peace with it. Later that day, curiosity pulled me to Ethan's studio. His brush danced with smooth precision over a canvas, his focus almost alive in the air. He flashed a gentle smile when he spotted me. "Caught me in the act," he teased. "Wanna see what I'm up to?" I stepped inside, drawn in by the scent of paint and turpentine, the room glowing with golden winter light pouring through the window. He moved aside to show me his work, a study of hands, their delicate poses brimming with emotion and life. "They're stunning," I murmured, in awe of the detail. He turned to me, his gaze steady. "I'm thinking about a series exploring emotions through the human form." "That's beautiful," I said, truly impressed. "You always notice what others overlook." For a second, something unspoken hung between us, his expression softening. I'd felt it before, a quiet bond that went beyond just mother and son. It reminded me how much we leaned on each other, especially with his dad away so much. Those winter days were warmed by our closeness and Ethan's growing collection of art. But as we grew tighter, I started to wonder about the lines we draw in relationships, where love and admiration blur together. There was no denying it, Ethan wasn't just my son, he was an incredible young man who filled the empty spaces in my life. That night was still and quiet, the kind of February night when snow and darkness hush the world. My husband was off fishing with buddies, as he often was, leaving Ethan and me in a home that felt warmer without him. That day, Ethan had been extra attentive, dropping small, thoughtful comments as we went about our day. You know, Mom, he said earlier while I was fixing dinner in the kitchen, you've got this special way about you. I turned, smiling curiously. What's that supposed to mean? He leaned against the doorway, his easy grin lighting up his face. You make any place feel like home. That's something special. I chuckled, brushing it off as a sweet compliment, but his words warmed me deep inside. It wasn't just what he said, it was the genuine tone that made me feel truly noticed. Later, as I sat by the fire flipping through a magazine, Ethan came out of his studio carrying a box. His grin was almost boyish, his dark eyes twinkling with excitement. He set the box on the coffee table in front of me. Mom, I've got an idea, he said. What's this about? I asked, curious. He stepped back, hands in his pockets, and nodded for me to open it. Inside was a gorgeous blue satin robe, gleaming like a sapphire in the soft light. I gasped. Ethan, what's this for? He shrugged, but his face was serious. I want to start a new series of portraits, something warm and personal, not detached. I want to paint you, Mom. Will you let me? My heart raced as I looked at the robe, the idea of being his muse both thrilling and a little overwhelming. The idea of posing for Ethan's portrait sent a thrill through me, but it also left me a bit rattled. You want me to wear this robe? I asked, glancing at him. He nodded, his eyes earnest and warm. You'd look incredible in it, Mom. Just for the painting, I promise. I paused, caught by the spark of excitement in his face, and finally said, all right, let's give it a try. His grin spread wide, lighting up the room with his enthusiasm. Awesome. I'll get everything ready while you slip it on. My hands shook just a little as I pulled the robe over my shoulders and hauled the box upstairs. The satin hugged my skin, cool and silky, boosting my confidence as I caught my reflection in the mirror. When I made my way back downstairs, Ethan had worked some kind of magic on the room. He'd transformed the space into something straight out of a dream, with a simple wooden chair in the center, wrapped in a plush wool blanket that looked warm and inviting under the soft, dancing glow of the fireplace. His easel stood poised nearby, holding a blank canvas that seemed to hum with the promise of his next creation, ready to bring his vision to life. You look absolutely beautiful, he said in a quiet, heartfelt tone, his voice carrying a warmth that made my heart skip. He stared for a moment, almost like he was seeing me for the first time, then shook his head with a small smile and nodded toward the chair. Just sit there and let yourself unwind, he said gently, his words soothing like a warm breeze. As I settled into the chair, the blanket's soft texture wrapped around me, easing the nervous flutter in my chest and grounding me in the moment. Ethan's gaze flicked back and forth between me and the canvas, his brush dancing across it with confident, practiced strokes, each one deliberate and full of purpose. At one point, he flashed a playful grin and teased, "Hold still, Mom. It's not hard, you're practically radiant already, making my job easy." I let out a soft chuckle, rolling my eyes at his charm. "Oh, Ethan, you're piling it on a bit thick, don't you think?" I said, trying to brush off the compliment. But he met my eyes, his expression turning earnest. "No, I mean it," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "You're breathtaking, and I'm just hoping I can capture even a fraction of that on this canvas." His words hit me like a wave, stirring a deep mix of pride and a tender vulnerability I wasn't quite prepared to face, emotions that swirled together and left me feeling both exposed and cherished in a way I hadn't felt in years. I stayed quiet, letting the soft scrape of his brush and the fire's crackle fill the room. As the night went on, the air between us grew heavier, charged with a quiet closeness that didn't need words. Ethan's teasing softened, his compliments turning more personal, pulling me into his warmth. "Remember when I was a kid, scribbling pictures of you with crayons?" he asked out of the blue, pausing his brush. "You kept every single one, no matter how messy they were." I smiled, warmed by the memory. "They weren't messy. They were treasures because they came from you." He chuckled, his eyes softening. "Not just for my art, but for everything. You've always been my muse." His words hit deep, and I felt my face warm. There was a sincerity in his voice that made me feel truly seen, in a way I hadn't felt in ages. When he finished, he stepped back, studying the canvas with a critical eye. "Done," he said, pride clear in his voice. I walked over to see, and my breath caught. The painting was stunning, me in the satin robe, glowing in the firelight, with a depth that captured something I didn't even know was there. "It's incredible," I said, my voice thick with feeling. "Thank you." Ethan turned to me, his face serious. "No, thank you, Mom, for everything." That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the image of the painting or the way Ethan looked at me. Our bond had always been tight, but something was shifting, growing richer and more layered. It was both unsettling and deeply comforting. The next morning, soft light slipped through the curtains, carrying the warm smell of coffee. Before I could fully wake, Ethan appeared by my bed, grinning playfully with a steaming mug in one hand and a single rose in the other. "Morning, my muse," he teased, his voice full of warmth. "Thought you could use a little spoiling today." Still groggy, I smiled, touched by his gesture. "You're too good to me," I mumbled, sitting up. He set the coffee on the nightstand. "That's the goal," he said, handing me the rose and sitting on the bed's edge. His gaze lingered, soft and warm, making my heart skip a beat. "Mom, you inspire me. I've never felt so connected to my art, or to anyone." His honesty caught me off guard, leaving me speechless. Before I could find words, he gently kissed my hand. "There's more coming," he said, his tone turning playful. "I've got a surprise for you tonight, but you've gotta stay out of the studio. Dad wouldn't get it if he saw." His words sent a mix of excitement and nerves rushing through me. "What kind of surprise?" I asked, my voice softer than I meant. He stood, laughing lightly. "You'll find out. I need to grab a few things, but trust me, you'll love it." He left, leaving me with the coffee, the rose, and a tangle of feelings I wasn't ready to sort out. His words, his touch, his gaze, they stuck with me all day. I felt giddy, almost like a teenager with a crush, but conflicted too. Ethan was my son, yet the way he saw me made me feel like a woman again, not just a mom or wife. As evening neared, my anticipation built. I made dinner, poured 2 glasses of wine, and tried to keep my mind off what might happen later. By the time I reached Ethan's studio, my heart was pounding like a drum in my chest, each beat echoing with anticipation. The old wooden door let out a familiar creak as I pushed it open, revealing Ethan standing amidst the comforting chaos of scattered paint tubes and stretched canvases, his posture radiating a quiet confidence I hadn't seen in him before. He held a small silver box in his hands, its polished surface glinting under the soft studio lights, catching my eye like a beacon. "I've been waiting for you, Mom," he said, his voice warm and welcoming, carrying a gentle pull that made the room feel smaller, more intimate. "Come on in, make yourself at home." He gestured toward a simple chair positioned in the heart of the room, draped with a soft cloth that seemed to invite me closer. I stepped inside, easing the door shut behind me, and the air filled with the faint hum of music, a soulful melody weaving through the familiar, earthy scent of paint and turpentine. The moment wrapped around us like a quiet embrace as he handed me the gleaming silver box. My curiosity sparked, buzzing with questions about what he'd planned. His dark eyes sparkled with a contagious excitement as he nodded for me to open it, his enthusiasm making my nerves tingle. With fingers that trembled just a bit, I lifted the lid and found a stunning silk outfit nestled inside, deep purple lingerie that shimmered like twilight, paired with delicate, gossamer wings and a small, intricate crown that looked like something from a fairy tale. My cheeks flushed hot as I glanced up at him, my mind racing, unsure of how to react to such an unexpected gift. "You're my muse, Mom," Ethan said, his voice steady and full of sincerity, cutting through my hesitation. "I want to paint you in a way that's daring, unapologetic, and completely true to who you are." I stood there, the weight of his words settling over me like a warm blanket, both thrilling and heavy with meaning. His unwavering confidence and the admiration shining in his eyes were impossible to resist, pulling me into his vision. With a slow, thoughtful nod, I clutched the box tighter and slipped behind the folding screen he'd set up in the corner, my heart still racing as I prepared to step into this bold new chapter of our shared story. The silk outfit hugged my skin as I changed, leaving me feeling exposed yet strangely empowered. When I stepped out, Ethan's eyes widened just a fraction, and a warm smile spread across his face. "You're absolutely perfect," he said softly, motioning toward the chair. "Just like that." He tweaked the easel, adjusted the music, and fine-tuned the lighting with the ease of someone completely in their zone. Then he started sketching, his movements deliberate, the room quiet except for the soft scratch of charcoal on paper and his occasional murmurs of approval. I watched him, his hands steady, his brow creased with focus, studying every line and shadow like I was the most fascinating thing he'd ever seen. There was a warmth in Ethan's gaze, something so personal it felt like he could see right into me. As the evening wore on, the boundaries between us started to fade, like lines drawn in sand washed away by the tide. His compliments grew bolder, each one laced with a tenderness that felt almost too soft, too real, carrying a weight of affection I hadn't expected. I knew we were stepping into dangerous waters, a place we shouldn't go, but the pull of him, of these feelings bubbling up inside me, was too strong to resist. What we had felt alive, like it had its own heartbeat, growing stronger with every shared glance and quiet moment. When he finally set his tools down, maybe he'd been fixing something in the apartment, a small task to fill the silence, he moved closer, his eyes never leaving mine. "Thank you for letting me in, Isabella, for trusting me with who you really are," he murmured, his voice so low it seemed to vibrate through the air between us. My heart swelled, overwhelmed by the moment, and I reached for his hand, gripping it tightly, as if I could hold on to this fragile, powerful thing we were sharing. Words escaped me, but the air around us felt charged, delicate yet heavy with a meaning we both sensed but couldn't quite put a name to. It was more than just attraction, it was a connection that felt like it was carving out a space in my soul, reckless and undeniable. Standing there, with the city's distant hum filtering through the windows, I felt the weight of what we were becoming, a quiet promise of something neither of us could walk away from. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed every word, every look, every touch. Something had shifted between us, growing deeper in ways I couldn't quite wrap my head around. I didn't know where this was headed, but it felt like I was stepping into something extraordinary, a path I'd never imagined. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, snapping me out of my thoughts. I picked it up and saw Ethan's message, "Come to the studio. Can't sleep." My breath caught, the weight of those simple words hitting hard. Before I could overthink it, I was on my feet, padding down the hall toward his studio, the house silent except for the faint creak of the floorboards. As I eased the door open, I found Ethan sitting on the edge of the couch, his hands gripped together tightly, his knuckles pale with tension. He lifted his head, his eyes meeting mine, a swirl of hope and uncertainty flickering in their depths, like he was searching for something he wasn't sure he'd find. "Mom," he said softly, his voice so quiet it barely reached me, trembling with a weight that made my chest tighten. "Do you feel it too, Isabella? I have to know." His words landed like a stone in still water, rippling through me, stealing the air from my lungs. I knew exactly what he was asking, even though I'd tried so hard to bury it deep inside. His raw, unguarded honesty stripped away any chance to pretend or dodge the truth. "Yes," I whispered, my voice wobbling, betraying the storm of emotions inside me. "I feel it too, Ethan." The room seemed to shrink around us, the silence heavy with the truth we'd both just admitted. His shoulders relaxed slightly, as if my words had lifted a burden, but his gaze stayed locked on mine, intense and searching, like he was waiting for what came next. I stood frozen in the doorway, my heart pounding, caught between the pull of this connection and the nagging voice in my head screaming that this was wrong. But standing there, looking at him, his nervous energy, the way his hands fidgeted, the quiet plea in his voice, I felt something shift inside me, something I couldn't unfeel. It was more than just the spark of those stolen moments in the cinema or the quiet evenings at home, it was a longing that had taken root, growing stronger with every glance, every touch, every unspoken word. I took a hesitant step closer, the floor creaking softly underfoot, the sound loud in the stillness of the apartment. The city lights glimmered outside, casting faint shadows across the room, but all I could see was Ethan, sitting there, vulnerable yet certain, waiting for me to meet him in this dangerous, undeniable space we'd created. Relief washed over his face, and he stood, crossing the room in a few quick steps. "You've always been more than just my mom," he said, his voice thick with feeling. "You're everything to me." He pulled me into a hug, and for a moment, it felt like the rest of the world melted away, leaving just us. I closed my eyes, swept up in the intensity. He eased back, hands resting on my shoulders. "I've got an idea," he said, his tone shifting to something playful. "Let's do something special, just us, while Dad's asleep." "What's that mean?" I asked, curiosity flickering. His eyes sparkled with mischief. "Paint therapy," he said. "It's about letting emotions out through color and touch. I've wanted to try it forever, and I can't imagine doing it with anyone else." Surprised but drawn in by his enthusiasm, I nodded. "Okay," I said, a nervous smile creeping in. "Let's see what it's about." Ethan's face lit up, and he started gathering supplies with contagious energy, spreading out a big roll of canvas, grabbing bottles of bright paint, and laying down towels to protect the floor. As he set up, he explained, "It's about letting go. No rules, just feeling." He poured paint onto the canvas, vibrant streaks of green, purple, and gold swirling into mesmerizing patterns. Then he turned to me, holding out his hand. "Ready?" I hesitated for a second, then took his hand. He led me to the canvas, and we dipped our fingers into the paint, spreading it across the surface. At first, it was fun, full of laughter and colorful streaks, but as the night deepened, it turned into something more. Ethan traced slow, deliberate patterns on my skin, his touch careful and intentional. His eyes met mine, and he whispered, "You're beautiful, every part of you." My cheeks warmed, but instead of pulling back, I leaned into his touch, letting the moment carry me. I reached out, painting a golden line along his collarbone, watching it gleam in the candlelight. The room hummed with soft music, the flicker of candles, and the warmth of our bond. With every touch, every shared glance, the walls between us seemed to fade. By the end, we were lying side by side on the canvas, our bodies covered in swirling colors. Ethan turned to me, his face soft and open. "Thank you for being here, for trusting me," he said quietly. My heart swelled, and I smiled. There's no place I'd rather be. That night, as I lay in bed, I replayed every second. Ethan was more than my son, he was a passionate, vibrant man who lit up my world. I couldn't deny the power of our connection, even if it was a path others might not understand.